Good night, everyone. Welcome in the name of Jesus. I am happy to conduct this class with you guys today. And we are going to get into chapter 12. But before we get into chapter 12, we will do a review of chapter 10 and what we did the last time we were together. So we will be doing our review, and we will start with Daniel chapter 10, verse 1, in the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia. Now, Daniel chapter 10 was written in the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia. And you will say, why is that important? You will see Daniel chapter 11 was written in the first year of Darius the Mede. The first year of Darius the Mede would be in the year 538. And the reason for that was Darius came into Babylon in October 10th, 539 BCE. That night, Belshazzar was killed, and the Babylonian kingdom came to an end, and Darius took over the city of Babylon on behalf of Cyrus, king of Persia. Now, 10 days later, which is October 22nd, 539 BCE, Darius came into the city with the rest of the army, and he was welcome because the people was having problems with Belshazzar and not yeah Belshazzar and his father Nabonidus. Yeah, you remember that Nabonidus was an absentee king. He was roaming Saudi Arabia for 10 years. He spent a couple of years building the temple for his mom and stuff like that. So he was an absentee king. He left his son Belshazzar to run the country. So chapter 11 was written in the first year of Darius the Mede. And I told you that when Darius took over the kingdom of Babylon in October, that year will not be counted as his first year. His first year will start in the next year, which will be 538 BCE. And remember, we are counting downwards, not upward. So from 539, we go to 538. Now, the third year of Cyrus does not mean the third year that he was king in general. It meant that the third year that he took over Babylon, because in 550 he took over the Median Persian empire, and he merged the Persian and the Medes together in 550. He was king 11 years before that. So when they are talking about the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, they are talking about the third year he was king in Babylon. So again, you would say, well, so what's the big deal? Why is that important? That was the same year, or around that year, the Jews were getting ready to go back to Jerusalem because he released them, and you would see that he was getting they were getting ready with Zerubbabel and Yeshua, and there were 50,000 people who were preparing to go back to Jerusalem in the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia. This is why all of this is important when you know the background. Just this week, I was looking at this week or last week, I was looking at a video on somebody teaching Daniel. And they said Daniel chapter 10, 11, and 12 all happened the same time. All should be studied together. No, it's not like that. It's a 3 year gap between the first year of Darius and the third year of Cyrus. So this is how Daniel chapter 10 started off. Is the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia. Now, in that first verse, you would see this word three times. A thing was revealed. A thing was revealed in Daniel chapter 10, verse 1. A thing was revealed. You would see the thing was true in Daniel chapter 10, verse 1. And you will see he understood the thing. So the word, the thing, was mentioned three times. And as a rule, when something is mentioned three times in a row in the Bible, it's important you should pay attention to it. So this is Daniel chapter 10, verse 1. A thing was revealed to Daniel. The thing that was revealed to Daniel was true. And he understood the thing. He, Daniel, understood the thing. That is Daniel chapter 10, verse 1. Daniel said in verse 2, in those days, I, Daniel, was in mourning 3 full weeks. Now remember, Daniel was 83 years old at that time, and he was in mourning. He was in fasting and prayer. So the question is, why was Daniel in mourning? Now we go back to Daniel chapter 9, and we see Daniel was excited at the opening of Daniel chapter 9 because he was about 66 years old that time, and he realized from the book of Jeremiah that that 70 year of desolation was about to come to an end. So he was excited, and he was happy to know that the Jewish people can go back and continue their life in Jerusalem. But then by the end of the chapter in Daniel chapter 9, um, he said that the 70 years would be accomplished of the desolation of Jerusalem. But at the end of the chapter in verse 27, he found out that there is more desolation that is going to take place among the children of Israel and among Jerusalem. So that is one of the reasons why he could be in mourning. And I told you before that in Ezra chapter 1, verse 3, let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord, God of Israel. This is where Cyrus, in the third year, he allowed the children of Israel to go back to Jerusalem to build the temple in Jerusalem. So Daniel was also in fasting and praying and mourning for this reason, for the people was preparing themselves to go back to Jerusalem. Uh, Now we have the time that Daniel was in mourning, which was he said on the 4th and 20th day of the first month. So if he was in mourning in the first month, it will be the month of Nisan, which is the first month in the Jewish calendar. And if he was somewhere on the 24th of that month, that meant that he had already fasted 3 full weeks, which is 21 days, and then 2 or 3 days later he was by the great river. He said, I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel. It's the Tigris River. The Hiddekel is the Jewish name for the Tigris River. So on day 24, the 24th of the month of Nisan, Daniel was standing by the great river. Now, this is what we did. We did this last day. I'm just giving you a review, a summarized form of what we did last day. But it's important to note that for 3 weeks of the month of Nisan, now it's like in January, a lot of people start fasting because they had this resolution. They're going to start the year fasting. They might do a 40-day fast, a 3-day fast, a 21-day fast. Probably it was the same thing with Daniel. Another reason why he would be fasting and mourning is this period of time is when you have the Passover. You have the Passover on the 14th of Nisan, and then you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread on the 15th of Nisan, and they still could not celebrate it in Jerusalem. They were in bondage in Babylon, so that's another reason why he was fasting. Now remember I told you that the Lord died on Nisan 14th. That is the day of Passover. That is a Wednesday. Now, I told you last day that every Saturday is a Sabbath, but not every Sabbath is a Saturday. That was Thursday, the 15th, when the Feast of Unleavened Bread would have started. It's a 7 day feast, and it will end on the 21st or the 22nd. And that day also was a Sabbath, regardless of what day of the week it fell. So you'll find in Christianity, they say the next day was a high day. So they would tell you, well, Jesus had to die on a Friday because the next day, which is a Saturday, was the Sabbath. No, not all Sabbath is Saturday. Nisan 15th was a Sabbath, and Nisan 22nd was a Sabbath because the first day and the last day of unleavened bread was a Sabbath. Let's go on. Daniel said in verse 5, he said, I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, remember we did this last week. I'm just revising it with you. And behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loin was girdled with fine gold of Uphaz. So this was the vision that Daniel saw. Remember the thing that was revealed, and the thing that was true, and the thing that Daniel understood. Daniel saw a vision of a man clothed in linen. We did a little search on the word linen or clothes made of linen, and we said the the curtains in the tabernacle was made of linen. We said rich people would wear purple linen, and then we had the story of the rich man and Lazarus. He was dressed in linen. We said when the Lord died, they buried him wrapped in linen. So that was some of the earthly use of linen. But we see in heaven, in the book of Revelation, chapter 15, verse 6, the seven angels which came out of the temple, having the seven last plagues, clothed in pure and white linen. So the linen is also a heavenly garment or material of which the garment is made in heaven, and having their breast girdled with golden girdles. And then we see in Revelation chapter 19, verse 8, and to her was granted that she should array in fine linen. This is the church we are talking about. When the church is coming back in Daniel chapter 19, verse 8, this is where we will be coming back. All of us will be dressed in fine linen, clean and white. Why? For the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. So linen is the material used for heavenly garment. Look at Revelation 19:14. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. Their military in heaven is clothed with fine linen, white and clean. So Daniel saw this man dressed in fine linen, girdle about the loins with a golden girdle. This person have to be a heavenly person. This person have to be very important, clothed in righteousness, and his loins was girdled with a golden girdle. So that was the vision. We compared him. His body was like beryl. We are talking about the man that Daniel saw. His face was appeared like appearance of lightning. This is in Daniel chapter 10. In the book of Revelation, it says, and this is describing Jesus in Revelation chapter 1. His head and his hair were white as wool, as white as snow. So you see the similarity there. Bright like lightning, white lightning, and in Revelation, his head and his hair was as white as wool, as white as snow. They said in Daniel that the man's eye, or the person that Daniel was looking at, his eyes were as lamps of fire. In Revelation, Jesus' eyes were like a flame of fire, very similar. And then we see his arms and his feet like the color of polished brass in Daniel chapter 10. His feet was of fine brass as if they burn in the furnace. This is Revelation chapter 1, talking about Jesus. And his voice in Daniel, his voice, the voice of his words, like the voice of a multitude. So Daniel heard him speak in Revelation chapter 1, his voice as the sound of many waters. This person is very similar. Now, we did not get the identity of this guy. We do not know who he was. The possibility exists this could have been the Lord, because you see the similarity between Daniel chapter 10 and Revelation chapter 1. Now, this is the effect of that vision. Daniel said in verse 8, "Therefore I was left alone and saw the great vision." Everybody who was with Daniel, he said, they did not see the vision. I was the only one who saw the vision. However, they knew something was going on. They knew something supernatural was taking place, and they all fled and left Daniel alone. I guess they did not leave Daniel alone on purpose. He was 83 years old. He just finished a 3 week fasting. He couldn't move as fast as they were. So he was left back. He was left alone. All right. So Daniel was the one who saw the vision. The other people saw something. They knew something was taking place, but they did not see the vision. Now, the effect of that vision on Daniel. Daniel said, "There remain no strength in me." He said that 4 times in Daniel chapter 10. He said it 4 times. And the reason for that is, one, he is 83 years old at least. And secondly, he just finished a 3 week fasting. He was not fully recovered. He said, "There was no strength in me." He said my face was towards the ground. Twice. He didn't have the strength to lift his head. Twice. He said at one point he was upon his knees. He was on all fours, upon his knees and the palm of his hands. This is the effect of the vision on Daniel. He said, "I stood trembling." He said, this is when the angel commanded him to stand up, Daniel. Daniel stood up, but he was shaken like a leaf because his body was weak. All right? He said, "I was dumb. I couldn't say anything." Then he touched me and strengthened me. Now, he did not say, Daniel did not say it was the man that he saw touch him. He did not say that. All right? But somebody touched him and he was strengthened. We believe it was uh, the angel Gabriel, because the angel Gabriel was with Daniel from Daniel chapter 9. The chapter ended with Gabriel coming to talk to Daniel. And Daniel said in verse 9, he said, "Yet I heard the voice of his words." So although Daniel was weak, it did not impair his hearing. He heard the voice of his word. Secondly, "And behold, and hand touched me." You will observe he did not say who or which hand or whose hand touched him, but he said, "A hand touched me and said unto me, O Daniel, man greatly beloved." He said that twice in this portion of scripture in Daniel chapter 10, and he said it once in Daniel chapter 9. So on 3 different occasions, the angel, well, it was Gabriel in Daniel chapter 9, and the possibility exists it is Gabriel. I believe it is Gabriel in chapter 10. And he said in verse 11 and verse 19, "O Daniel, a man greatly beloved." Now, this is Daniel is beloved in heaven. Okay, this is a heavenly creature talking to Daniel, an angel talking to Daniel, and he said, "Thou art greatly beloved." Daniel, and what communication did the angel have with Daniel? The angel told Daniel in verse 11, he said, "Understand the words." Then he said unto me, "Fear not." In verse 12, the angel tried to comfort Daniel. "Come on, Daniel, don't be afraid. We had communication before." And then he said, "Fear not again. Peace be unto you. Be strong. Yea, be strong. So the angel was giving him encouraging words to be strong. Now, this is the situation that took place between Daniel. This is what was leading up to this vision, and this is the reaction of the vision. So the question is, what is the message? The message was, Daniel, you were fasting for 21 days. Today is day 24. For from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and chasten thyself before thy God, thy word was heard, and I am come for thy word. So the message to Daniel, Daniel in his corrupt state, in his weakened state, in his fearful state, the angel gave him a message after trying to comfort him. He said, from the very first day your prayers were answered. Now let this be a lesson to some of us. Sometimes you are praying for something, you need the answer, and the answer is just not coming. It does not always be your fault. It is not that you are doing something wrong. In Daniel's case, the message was prevented, the messenger was prevented from getting to Daniel with the answer. So sometimes you have a need, you are praying and you are fasting and you are seeking the Lord, and for some reason the answer is not coming. You did everything right. But look what Daniel said, Gabriel said in verse 13, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 120 days. So he was prevented from coming down from heaven with the answer to Daniel. And he said, but lo, Michael, one of the chief prince, came to help me. I am still surprised that preachers are saying that the prince of Persia, who was Cyrus, was the one holding back the answer to Daniel's prayer. This is a spiritual situation. It is an angel talking to him. It was an angel who was coming with the answer. A human could never stop an angel from bringing the answer to your prayers. The prince of Persia here is a spiritual demon, or the demon that is in charge of Persia. So we have a demon in charge of Persia, we have a demon in charge of Grecia, and we have demons in charge of nations in the world. You wonder why these people do certain things. It's not their fault. Well, certainly they give the devil a chance to get in, and he took advantage of it. So, kind of ways is their fault. But in this case, uh, Daniel is saying, the prince of Persia stopped me from coming down with the answer. Michael came, one of the chief princes, and I want you to pay attention to that word, one of the chief princes. One of them. That means there are many, and we know of two, and we know from in the book of Revelation, chapter 8, verse 1 and 2, tells us that there are seven angels which stand in the presence of God. Seven angels. Michael is one of them, and Gabriel is one of them. And Gabriel told Zacharias, he said, I am Gabriel who stand in the presence of God. So there are five more princes that stand in the presence of God. Michael is one of them, and Gabriel is one of them. So he said, now I am come to make thee understand. Remember in verse 1 it said, and Daniel, he understood the thing because Gabriel came to make him understand the thing. So he had a good teacher. And Gabriel said, now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days. For yet the vision is for many days. So this was the message. Two things that Gabriel told Daniel. One, that he was interrupted on his way to deliver the message for 21 days, and two, he is come to let Daniel know what shall befall his people in the latter days. Another thing that surprised me recently was this guy. I look at his work on YouTube, and he is amazing, amazing teacher. And he said he believed Daniel last week has already passed. But when you look at this verse, I was upset when he said that for like 2 days, because it's like, how can you say the 1 week of Daniel that is remaining has already passed, when the angel told Daniel, he said, I am come to show you what shall befall your people in the latter days. We are living in the latter days, and every single day after today is the latter day. So that 1 week is not finished, and the latter days of the children of Israel are yet to come. Now, the chapter ended off with this verse, Daniel chapter 10, verse 21. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things but Michael your prince. Michael your prince. Michael is the angel in charge of Israel. And Gabriel is saying that nobody else is holding these truths together as except Michael, his prince. Michael is the one that is working together with Gabriel to deliver this message of what shall happen with the Jewish people in the latter days. So it is Michael and it is Gabriel. Michael is mentioned twice in Daniel chapter 10. And now we are getting to Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. And it starts with Michael. This is why I tell you Daniel chapter 10 and Daniel chapter 12 goes together. Not Daniel chapter 10, then chapter 11. Daniel chapter 10 and now Daniel chapter 12. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. So the angel that stand, or the prince, or the spiritual prince that stand with the children of Israel, is Michael, that great prince. He is the one that stand with Israel. So as Daniel chapter 10 began with the word, a thing was revealed, the thing was true, and he understood the thing. In Daniel chapter 12, it starts with, and at that time, three times. You will find this. At that time, that same time, and at that time. You will find this happening three times. So the two chapters have a similar pattern. One, the first time it was the thing, a thing, and he understood the thing. In Daniel chapter 12, at that time, that same time, at that time. So that is important. You pay attention to that. What will happen? At that time shall Michael stand up. At that time shall Michael stand up. Now we let us take a look at Michael in the Bible. Daniel chapter 10, verse 13. Then Michael, one of the chief prince, came to help me. Michael is mentioned in the book of Daniel once. Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. At that time, Michael, the great prince, will arise. Now remember, he was also mentioned in the last verse in Daniel chapter 10. So this is the third time. And then in the book of Jude, but even the archangel Michael said, the Lord rebuke you. This is when Satan was arguing about the body of Moses with Michael. And Michael did not tell him anything about the body of Moses. He said to him, the Lord rebuke you. And then in Revelation chapter 12, verse 7, these are the times the name of Michael is mentioned in the Bible. Then a war broke out in heaven, and Michael and his angel fought. Michael and his angel, they fought against the devil and his angels. So this is four times here, plus in Daniel chapter 10, verse 27, Michael was mentioned in the Bible. Now, This is my personal thing. I don't normally tell you about personal stuff, my personal belief and stuff like that, but this is one instant where I wish this was true. In Second Kings chapter 19, verse 35, and it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrian an hundred fourscore and 5,000. And when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. What is happening here? You will see the words, the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrian 185,000 soldiers. In one night, the angel of the Lord went out and slay 185,000 soldiers. This was when Sennacherib came up against Hezekiah, and Hezekiah took the letters that Sennacherib wrote and laid it in front of the God, in front of God in the temple, and he said unto him, "Look, God, look what this guy is saying about you. What are we going to do about it?" That night, God sent the angel of the Lord, and he went out and killed 185,000. I always held the belief that this was Michael the archangel. And some of you might believe that this is Michael the archangel. And maybe you are right. I don't know. But I'm going to show you why I am saying the angel of the Lord is not Michael the archangel. Now, this is in Genesis chapter 22. The angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven a second time. This is when Abraham was about to offer his son Isaac. And the angel of the Lord called out to Abraham. And this is what he said. And he said, by myself have I sworn. This is very important. By myself I have sworn, said the Lord. This is the angel of the Lord talking. So you say, what is the significance? What is so important about that? If the angel of the Lord was Michael, he would swear by God. I swear by the living God, blah, 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 blah. But the angel of the Lord have to be the highest form. There is nobody higher than him, so he had to swear by himself. This is why I say the angel of the Lord is not Michael the archangel. I wish it was, because I have pictures of Michael of an angel slaying 185,000 soldiers in one night, and I was so excited about that. I say I love Michael because look at what he did. It does not always be Michael. The angel of the Lord is not Michael the archangel, because he swore by himself, and only God could swear by himself. Let's go on. So we see Michael, and at that time shall Michael arise, the captain of your people, Israel. At that time, remember we are talking about at that time, at that time. Now, in Daniel chapter 12, verse 1 again. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. This is the second time we are seeing the words that time, except it is another word is added, that same time. Okay, so this is the second time that time or that same time is added. What same time is that they are talking about? The same time when Michael is standing up for your people. When Michael is standing up for your people, there shall be a time of trouble. Now, this is what shall happen to your people in the latter days. Remember, this is the message of Gabriel. What shall happen to your people in the latter days? So, what Gabriel told Daniel, he said, at that time, Michael will stand up for your people. And that same time that Michael is standing up for your people, there shall be a time of trouble. So let us take a look at this. Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. Jeremiah calls it Jacob's trouble. That time, that same time, is the time of Jacob's trouble. Why is it the time of Jacob's trouble? Who does Jacob represent? Jacob was the father of Israel. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. After that night, he wrestled with the angel and he told the angel, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. And the angel said, what is your name? He said, my name is Jacob. He said, not from today. Your name is Israel. Also, when they talk about Jacob, they are talking about all 12 tribes. Not just Judah, but all 12 tribes. Jeremiah is saying, there shall be a time of trouble. Let's go on. That same time we are talking about. Jesus said, for then shall there be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. So Jesus is talking about that same period of time. And he is saying, there shall be great tribulation, such as was never from the beginning of the world to that time. Well, Jesus said this time. He is talking about that same period of time. That is in verse 1, when Michael shall stand up with your people. And at that same time, there shall be a time of trouble. Jesus is adding to that and saying, there shall be great tribulation, such as was never from the beginning of the world. That is going to happen during this same period. This is what Jesus is saying. So how did Jesus explain that? Matthew chapter 24. It was impossible for me to give you everything in Matthew 24. So I'll give you a home assignment. Read Matthew 24 and you'll understand at that time there shall be a time of trouble. What is Jesus talking about? He said, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars at that time. He said, for nations shall arise against nation and kingdoms against kingdom, and there shall be famine and pestilence and earthquake in divers places at that same time. And he said, and then many be offended and shall betray one another and hate one another at that time, at this same time. This is the time of trouble that Jesus is talking about. Now look at the book of Revelation. We are talking about what time is he talking about? Is that time, that same time. The stars of heaven fell onto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely leaves, her figs, when she is shaken in a mighty wind. The stars from heaven shall fall. He said, and the heaven departed as a scroll, and when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Revelation chapter 6. And in Revelation chapter 6, verse 15, and the kings of the earth. Now, this is the section that will show you everybody will be affected, starting from the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and the bondman, and the free man, hid themselves in the den and in the rock of the mountain, and said to the mountain and the rock, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that liveth, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. At that time, when Michael shall stand up for your people, at that time, that same time, there shall be a time of trouble. That is what, and then Jesus said, at this time, this period in time. Then look at Revelation chapter 16, verse 20 and 21. and every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. So in Revelation chapter 6, they were saying, fall on us and hide us. In Revelation chapter 16, they said the mountains fled away, the islands fled away, and there fell upon men great hail. It is said in the book of Revelation, this great hail is about the weight of a man, at least 120 pounds. So they call for it in Revelation chapter 6, and it is happening in Revelation chapter 16. So when will this happen? At that time. Revelation chapter 12, verse 1 is what we are talking about. And men blaspheme God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague was thereof was exceedingly great. So you are seeing what will happen at that time. There shall be a time of trouble. That same time, there shall be a time of trouble. So the question is, when will this happen? When will that time take place? When will that same time take place? When will this time that Jesus is talking about will take place? We have to go back to Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. We have to understand the 70 weeks. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. Now remember, the 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city. Remember, I am come to show you what shall happen to your people in the latter days. So this is happening to the Jews most of all, but there will be collateral damage and it will spread worldwide. But it is about the children of Judah, especially Judah. We have to go back to the 70 weeks. We have to understand what the 70 weeks is talking about. So this is the 70 weeks. It was 70 weeks in all. The first 7 weeks of 49 years, remember we said the word for weeks is heptad, which means a group of seven. And the group of seven is a group of 7 years. So 7 weeks is 49 years. This is the first part of that 70 weeks. What will happen during that time? Nehemiah rebuilt the city wall. Nehemiah rebuilt the city streets. Nehemiah rebuilt Jerusalem. So the first 7 weeks or 49 years, that was accomplished. When that was accomplished, the second part of that 70 weeks began. 62 weeks or 434 days, Messiah will die. And when they do the calculations, the 434 years ended up exactly the date Jesus rode into Jerusalem on the donkey. That is when he rode into Jerusalem, he cleansed the temple, and that was the last week of his life on earth. 62 weeks or 434 days. Now, when you add these two sections, you're going to get 69 weeks or 483 years. So from the 70 weeks, 69 weeks is already fulfilled, which is 483 years. Now, after that, after Jesus died, we had the church for 2,000 years. And then the last week will begin. The last week will be accomplished. The last week is not finished as yet. This is what we believe all our lives. The last week is not finished as yet. This is what we are looking at when the angel Gabriel talk about the 70 weeks that is determined upon thy people. So what are we waiting for? We are waiting. This is the 70 weeks here, the complete 70 weeks. Start off with the 7 weeks or 49 years, then the 62 weeks and 434 years. When you add those two together, you'll get 69 weeks or 483 years. And then when you add the 1 week to the back or 7 years, you'll get 70 weeks or 490 years. What are we waiting for? We are waiting for the rapture to take place. That is what we are waiting for. The next event on God's calendar will be the rapture taking place. And then the last week will start. So this slide is showing you from the church age to the end. So we have the 2000 years. This is where we are living in right now. Word and Spirit Assemblies is part of this 2000 years. And all Christians on earth today or all born again is part of that 2000 years. We are waiting on the rapture that will take place. Once the rapture take place, the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall caught up in the air to meet the Lord in the air. This is what we are waiting on right now. Then the 1 week that is remaining or the 7 years will begin. So let us take a look at that last week. Remember, this is what Gabriel told Daniel. He said, "Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days, for yet the vision is many days." So we are talking about the what shall befall thy people in the latter days. I want you to remember that. So this is what will happen. We are waiting. Our job, our part right now is we are waiting on the rapture. Let's see how the week will begin after the rapture. "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week." This is Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. This is Gabriel speaking. This is words coming directly from heaven. He said, "He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week." This is the 1 week that is missing in the 70 weeks. How will this week start? He. Who is this he? This is the Antichrist. This is the little horn in the book of Daniel. He shall confirm a covenant. He shall make an agreement for 1 week. Now, remember the word for week is heptad. I mean, one of a group of 7, which is years. So he will make a covenant. He will make an agreement for 7 years. This is how it will start, with an agreement. The Antichrist will make an agreement for 1 week. Now let's look at this one. Chapter 11, verse 21. "And in his estate shall stand up a vile person." The vile person and the little horn and the he that we just talked about is the same person. In the book of Revelation, the Antichrist is the same person of this vile person. And he shall stand up vile in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom. They would not want to give him the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom with flattery. So how will the Antichrist take hold on the earth? How will the little horn, who is the Antichrist, take hold of the earth? How will the vile person take hold of the earth? Peaceably. He will sign a peace treaty with Israel for 7 years. Remember, he will make an agreement for 1 week. 1 week, 7 years. He shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by sweet talk. He will have a silver tongue. Now, again, I'm giving you a thought, which is my own thought, not biblical. Do you remember Trump's first term in office? He had his guy, Jared Kushner, going to the Middle East and making peace treaties. Now, again, this is my personal views. You don't have to agree with me. I believe the reason why the Lord cut his term and did not give him the second term at that time was because of the peace. Not that he was doing something wrong, but he had too much of peace taking place. And that is for the Antichrist. He's the guy who is going to create peace in the Middle East. They had three peace treaties signed with Arab nations, and they had five in the works. This is why I think he lost the election the second time. This is my opinion. You don't have to carry it anywhere. Or I could say, don't tell anybody I said that. Now, did you know that Jared Kushner is living in a building, or he owns a building in Manhattan, and the number is 666? So my argument was, could you imagine he was actually the Antichrist? And he was telling, he would tell the world, what you people think? Hey, look at where I live. My number is 666. That was just by the way. However, this vile person would not be able, they would not let him in to control the kingdoms. But he will come in peaceably, and he will obtain the kingdom by his silver tongue, by his flattery. So he will get in because of peace. He will promise the world peace that nobody else has ever seen. And that is how he will get hold of the kingdom of this world. Now, what will happen after that? In the midst of the week, now we are talking about the middle of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. So he will turn at the middle of the week. The man of peace, which signed the contract at the beginning of the week, when it comes to the middle of the week, he will turn. He will stop the sacrifice in Jerusalem. He will stop worship in Jerusalem. He will cause the oblation to cease. All the sacrifices will cease at the middle of the tribulation period. So let's see what we got now. The rapture taking place. This is what we are waiting on. Then the 1 week will start, or 7 years. At the beginning of the week, that big arrow would represent the beginning of the week. He shall come in peaceably at the beginning of the week. That is the first 3.5 years, or half of the week. And then in the middle of the week, he will cause the sacrifice to cease, which is the middle of the week right there. And then we are talking about everything else will happen in the last half of the middle of the week, which is half a week, or 3.5 years. Jesus said in Matthew 24:21, for then shall be great tribulation. And this period of time, the last half of the tribulation period, now this whole 7 week is called the tribulation period. The last half is called the Great Tribulation. This is what is going to happen. This is what will happen to your people in the latter days, is what Gabriel was saying. And then in 1 Thessalonians 5:3, for when they shall say peace and safety, which is what the Antichrist will say at the beginning of the week, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So you see, all the scriptures are coming together in the book of Daniel. So this is what we have. Now I'm looking at the last half of that week. All right. The rest of these slides will show you the last half of that week. We are talking about half a week, or 3.5 years, or 1260 days, or times, and dividing of time. This is the last half of that week. I'm going to show you the scriptures that talk about the last half of that week. Much scripture is allotted to the last half of that week. And in some cases it was 3.5 years, or 1260 days, or time, times, and dividing of times. Let's get started. All right, I just got five, give me about 5 minutes again. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. And they shall be given into his hands until a time, and times, which is two. Time is one, times is two, and dividing of time is half. So it is 3.5 years they're talking about there. So that's the first time they talk about time, times, and half a time. Then look at this verse. I swear by and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, one, times two, and a half, which is half a year, which is 3.5 years, and time, times, and dividing of time. This is the second scripture that talk about that. Revelation chapter 11, verse 3. And they shall prophesy 1,203 score days, 1,260 days, or 3.5 years, or the last half of the week, or the Great Tribulation. And they shall feed her there 1,203 score days. Again, the last half of the 7 year period, where she is nourished for a time. The same thing they're talking about, but they use a different term. In verse 6, they talk about 1,203 score days. In verse 14 of the same chapter, it talks about a time, which is one, times, which is two, and half a time, which is half a year, from the face of the serpent. What I'm showing you is how many times the Bible talk about that 3.5 years. And power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. 40 and 2 months is 3.5 years. So this is the second part of Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. And it says, Daniel shall stand up for your people. He said, at that time, Daniel will stand up for your people. At that time, there shall be a time of trouble. And all of this that I showed you, when will be that time of trouble? I showed you the 70 years of Daniel prophecy. The time of trouble will be the last week or the last 7 years. And I showed you how the Antichrist is going to get hold of the world at that time, what will happen at the half point of that tribulation period, and how many times the Bible talk about that particular time. The Bible talk about that a whole lot. And then the next part of Daniel chapter 12, verse 1 would be, and at that time thy people shall be delivered. This is the last part of Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. At that time, thy people shall be delivered. Everyone that should be found written in the book. So this is where we will continue next week, the last part of at that time. So we see Michael will stand up for thy people. There will, at that same time that Michael is standing up for thy people, there shall be a time of trouble, which is great trouble as never seen before. And at that time thy people shall be delivered. So we will continue this lesson next time we meet at that time. So I would stop here and turn back over to Pastor Michael. Thank you very much for joining me today.